For those of you who've already had a chance to log on, my name is Talia Wise, and I work at CEB, Continuing Education of the Bar, and we're located in Oakland, California, and we're a program within the University of California. And thank you so much for joining us today. I am not an attorney. I did not go to law school. I am a marketing professional, and I am the product and communications marketing manager here at CEB. And the reason why I am conducting this webinar, or actually live conversation, if you will, is because my team is responsible for all of our social media, and I have worked in social media for the past 10 years and content development, marketing content development. And before coming to CEB, I worked with many thought leaders in helping them create their presence within social media to help bolster their business. Now, I'm going to introduce our wonderful and very generous guest, Mitch Jackson. For those of you who don't know him, he is a trial lawyer, and he has a lot of stories about what he does and what he knows how to do better than anyone. But he is going to speak to how to use social media, not only as a way to reach new customers and to build your business and to build your professional and or personal brand, but also to take the tactics and skills that you develop for social media and how to bring them into the courtroom, so I almost said classroom, and really create a compelling argument. Before we get started, and Mitch, I know you have a lot to say, and I see we have some notes coming in. A lot of people are saying hi. Hi.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody. I will say Mitch and I are probably going to talk, and we're going to monitor the chat. You can see the chat at the bottom. I'm trying to find my little, it's at the bottom, a little chat. If you have questions for us, don't hesitate to write them out and send them off. All of you are on mute, so you can't phone in your questions. You're going to have to write them. And if something's super hyper topical and we see it in time, we'll definitely interrupt the conversation and address your question. If not, we're going to save questions till the end, and we'll read them out, and then Mitch will respond to them. Okay, so it's 12:03. I feel comfortable getting started. How about you, Mitch?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, Mitch, before we get started, is there anything I overlooked in describing your background that you want to address to the audience?
Not at all. I mean, I'm looking forward to talking about maybe some of the different communication techniques and approaches that I've picked up and used in the courtroom over the years and have transitioned over into social media using these same approaches. How they work, how to go about it, how everyone in the audience, especially the lawyers, can start doing the same thing with their online and offline efforts. So hopefully we'll get some courtroom ideas and a lot of social media and digital ideas during today's show. So thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. So I'm going to level set the field right now. There's some people I know who probably know who you are, and that's why they joined the call. And thank you so much for doing your great self-promotion to getting people on board. But there's probably also a lot of people on the call who don't follow you. So maybe you can start with telling us what you do in social media that has really impacted the way you work in court, and what maybe even break it down to a day-to-day activity.
Well, I think that ideas and actions and relationships, both in the courtroom, that relationship that you help a jury establish with your client or clients, the same approaches that we use in court and that have worked so well for me over the years. And I've been practicing law for 33 years. I'm married to my law school sweetheart, who happens to be my partner and has been my partner for the last 33 years. Our daughter gets her bar results tomorrow. I'm a family on Friday, right here in California. Okay. And I'm a family guy, right? And so the reason I'm sharing this stuff with you is that what I've noticed with building relationships inside the courtroom works 10 times better, even offline in social media, because you're not restrained or constrained by the rules of evidence and the rules of civil procedure. In other words, you can take your hat off and show your human side as a professional on the social media platforms. And so I think the first takeaway to building your brand, expanding it from local to global on social media as a lawyer, is give yourself permission to show your human side, to share your why. Why do you get out of bed every morning? What's important to you? Give yourself permission to share your why. And then while you're doing that, okay, you can talk about your cases. You can talk about breaking news stories with a legal twist. There are all types of ways to communicate on social media using emotion, being unique, and creating memorable content. And those are the 3 talking points today. And we're going to drill down with everything you do on social media. When I'm in court trying a case, I want to be the person in court that the jury can trust. I'm their leader. They know that I'm going to take them by the hand, and from start to finish, from jury selection to closing argument, they can trust what I say, they can follow what I do, and when it's all said and done by using storytelling, good storytelling techniques, my clients, they're going to want to stand up and give my client what he or she wants and deserves to find justice. Telling a good story is one thing. We all know the power of storytelling, right? There's something even more important and more powerful than telling a good story. And that's being able to empower your audience, whether it's a jury of 12 or whether it's an audience of 1,000 on social media, to take that desired action, to take that next step. So to recap, if you learn how to share powerful, emotional human stories using emotion, sharing your uniqueness, and doing so in a memorable way, you're going to be creating that type of social digital currency that's not only going to help you today, but help you for many years to come. And that's what we're going to be talking about today during the show.
And these are such great points. I think so many people who don't actively use social, I don't even think I know this, who don't actively use social media, who are skeptical of it, they're coming from a point of view that they are either very hesitant about what they're writing, they're hyper self-critical, they're afraid of saying something wrong and being flamed forever or canceled. I think that's the term the kids are using today. And they don't realize that really, in order to create your authentic self, in order, sounding a little woo-woo Northern California, you actually have to do these things to convey a level of authority that people will start to follow. So can you speak to a couple of things that help set that up and give people confidence in what they're doing when they're going out there through the different social channels in order to feel confident that they're not doing anything wrong, and then, again, to create that authenticity?
So give yourself permission to become relevant and to stay relevant and to embrace the digital platforms. That's the first thing. Don't self-limit yourself. By giving yourself permission to take this next step, social's not going anywhere. Digital's not going anywhere. You guys, it's only getting bigger and bigger. It allows you, for me, because I practice law so I can help people, when we put our first website up in 1996, it was one of those situations where I wasn't sure if anything was going to come out of it. I wasn't sure if there was something to this internet thing. But what I started to notice when I started blogging and when I started interacting in real life conversations, even before social media, is instead of answering your questions one-to-one across my desk, I was answering questions 1 to 10, 1 to 1,000, 1 to 10,000, or over time through recorded videos, 1 to 100,000. So it allows you to really amplify useful and helpful information to the consumer. By doing that, you're building a better consumer experience and relationship between the consumer and lawyers in general. And then if they know, like, and trust you, guess what? If they're in New York and they need a good California law firm, they're going to reach out to you because they know who you are. You're top of mind. You've built a brand, and they feel that they can trust you. So here's the thing. Let's start off with the power of storytelling. Everything I just said, you want to start off by embracing the power of storytelling. And if you're not comfortable with telling a story about yourself, tell a story about community service activities that you're involved with. Tell a story about clients, and obviously following state bar rules, but shining a light on a client's business or walking through their business with one of these and live streaming their assembly line, and talk to them about quality control. You can tell stories about other people, about other projects, about other activities. It doesn't need to be focused on you. Okay. And that's a great way to get past that first hurdle where I don't want to talk about myself, or I'm not comfortable on social media. You know what? Then talk about somebody else. Talk about distracted driving, which is something I'm a strong advocate of, raising the awareness of the dangers of distracted driving. Talk about the statistics behind distracted driving. Bring in guests and interview guests about how dangerous it is to drive distracted. So it doesn't need to be about you when you're telling these stories, but it does need to be about something that's entertaining, Did you just hear what I said? Entertaining. That doesn't mean we want to be behind our desk being that typical lawyer lecturing people, okay? Get out and about, pull out your phone and be engaging. Use your hands, be entertaining, be informative, add value, be unique. I didn't show up in a shirt. I didn't show up in a shirt and tie in my suit today because I'm working. This is just me. This is the way I roll. And what you see is what you get with me. So the first thing is you can always focus on someone else instead of yourself. And that's a great way to start off. Super easy, right?
Right. I think also to your point about, not making the story about you, one of the tenets of marketing, especially marketing communications, is that in the media that you send out, you identify what your customer's pain point is. And that's what helps create the emotional connection. So to your point of you take a story that's not your story, if you take a story that's about the customer or about a potential client or about a potential industry that you want to work in, then you start building a lot more confidence between a market sector or a client type that you're trying to develop relationships with. And one of the great things that you could do, especially as a solo or a small practice attorney, if you, like, let's say you're working with a underserved community, you have a possibility in these cases that you can reach out to people in their first language. If you have the capacity to do that, you can talk about their pain points that otherwise never get talked about. Social media isn't here just for the businesses and the people that can pay for the businesses. It's free to everybody. It really level sets what people can do as far as networking. And it's a huge networking tool that we didn't have over 10 years ago that really wasn't used properly. And it changes the whole way that all different types of people can acquire access to law, which is one of CEB's missions, is to make law more accessible to everyone. That being said, we also know that attorneys are very, very busy, especially solos and small firm attorneys. Sure. How do you make the time to do this properly?
So my response would be, how do you not make the time? This is a game changer, you guys. This is what's going to help you build your brand and bring in new referrals, new clients to your firms, and when it's all said and done, end of year revenue is going to increase. Okay, there's someone watching us who's a friend of mine, Nick Rishwain. He's the VP of experts.com. Nick does a great job of blogging, like I was talking about, but he references his experts, his clients. He'll bring in third-party opinions and share their links and share their thoughts on a particular breaking news story. And by doing that, he's adding value to his community. He's shining a light on somebody else that he's talking about in their blog post. And guess what happens if I'm writing about you, Tyler, and you see this blog post with your name, your website, your link in there, you're probably going to be sharing that with your audience. Right. And so by shining a light on other people, you're allowing them the opportunity to amplify what you're doing. Everything we're talking about in the first section of communicating on social media has to do with storytelling, but it also has to do with having a conversation. And you just brought something up that's really important. Think about this, you guys, of having a conversation with your audience. You're not lecturing. You're not teaching. For example, write down the 10 most often questions you're asked in your practice each week or each month. And then create a 1, 2, or 3 minute short video or live video or short 500-word blog post answering that question in detail. Share your secret sauce. Don't even have a call to action at the end. Just add value, add answers, solutions, and put this content out there. Take that blog post and turn it into a podcast, into an audio. Take that blog post and use it as a script for a YouTube video. When I say script, I mean don't read the script into a video. Take a look at it. You know the content and the answers to these questions. Look at the camera just like I am right now. Look into the lens and share your 2 to 3 minute YouTube video or 10 to 15 minute YouTube video on that particular topic. The way I save time, and I guess that's what I'm getting at, is I'll create content once and then we'll repurpose that content on 11 or 12 different platforms or in 11 or 12 different ways. I'll have my front office do it. I'll go ahead and send it out to a virtual assistant or virtual assistants. So we create content once and then we repurpose it over and over. quick, funny story. I'm sitting at counsel table about halfway through a trial. I get along with the attorneys I try cases with. They might as well be happy when I'm kicking their butt in court. Okay, it's nothing personal. I'd rather see them smile when they get a verdict against them. But about halfway through trial, the attorney leans over to me, and he's got this thing, leans over, and he goes, "How did you just tweet this out? Like, you've been sitting next to me all morning. How did you find time to tweet this out?" And I told him last Sunday night during Sunday Night Football, I scheduled in a platform that I use, and I can share it if you want, but I'm not going to promote anything right now. I scheduled all of my content that night while watching football, and I had my front office do the same thing and my virtual assistants. And what happens is you schedule it once, and then throughout the course of the week, it takes that content and shares it out on the different platforms. You want to have a presence on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is a new platform, maybe Snap, YouTube, all the live video channels. And by doing this, it saves me time. It allows me to build my brand while I'm taking care of my clients. So that's the long answer to your short question. Sorry about that.
No, it's good, because it's really where I think what stymies people from getting up and running. They're like, how am I going to make time to do this? How is it ever going to happen? And in my consulting and getting people up and running, it does take time. It does take time to create a battery of content. It doesn't happen like right away. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And what I tell people, I encourage people to make it a practice. It's like, if you do sit-ups every day, you do this. If you floss your teeth every day, you do this. If you go into work and the first thing you do is you check email, you add this to your list of regimented things that you need to do on the regular basis, and it'll become a habit. And very easy to do. And to your point, you brought this up, how you can take one piece of content. This is what a lot of people don't realize. We are going to do that with this video right now. We are going to repurpose it into at least 4 or 5 different pieces of content once it's recorded and edited and we have it up and ready to be viewed. I also want to make a plug, though, for YouTube. A lot of people don't realize they look at YouTube as the place to go for DIY or entertainment. It's the number 2 research platform. It's the number 2 place where people go to look for information. So it's really invaluable to your business to be posting videos on YouTube, because especially if you have an open site, which I would definitely recommend, for people to find out who you are and what you're talking about. In your experience, speaking more of the different platforms, what do you find the most effective, and whom do you meet where? Because that's always been interesting to me to see what different organizations or different types of sectors are in different platforms.
So I look at the social media platforms as welcome mats, not only to my firm, but to my life. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really important that you eventually work to build your brand, not to market, not to sell, not to instruct, but build relationships on all of the top platforms. Mm-hmm. And I've created and had amazing relationships on all the platforms we've already talked about. So it just depends on where you are and what you're doing. The secret is to create content that I think is interesting, newsworthy. I like to newsjack. I've been on stage a couple of times at Tony Robbins. And the reason I was on stage, and my friend David Merriman Scott, who's a best-selling author, a marketing guru who asked me to join him, was because he watched how we were newsjacking. And it's been a powerful way for us, without spending a lot of time, right, to build out our brand. Here's what newsjacking is. Newsjacking is when there's breaking news about something, you immediately, if you can add value, and I'm not talking about criticizing or pointing fingers, but for the lawyers out there, if I can add value to that breaking news story, for example, when the Bill Cosby news story originally broke, where he was accused of putting drugs in women's drinks, I was down on the beach taking a run, and my daughter was just starting school at UCLA. And as a dad, that was always one of my biggest concerns was, is she going to be safe? And I remember stopping and pulling out my phone, and I either went on Twitter Live or Periscope back then, but I did a short live video about, listen, I'm reading this breaking news as a lawyer in California, as a dad. Let me tell you what my biggest concerns are. And in the state of California, from a criminal standpoint, if this happens, this is what your options are. And from a civil standpoint, this is what civil claims could be brought against Mr. Cosby if he, in fact, did what he's accused of doing. When I got back to the office, I had I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 different phone messages back then. Now they're email and DMs on Twitter.
Right,
From
right.
reporters looking for someone to interview about that breaking story. So what I try to do is I try to interject my own unique thoughts on a breaking news story immediately. Then when you get back from court to the office, or when you have a little bit more time, follow it up with a more detailed blog post and embed that earlier content into the blog post and just keep building upon it. When the state of California came out with its sextortion law a few years ago.
Okay, yes, I remember this.
And I don't have the law in front of me,
Right.
but I remember thinking to myself, as a lawyer, you know, it dropped the ball on a couple of things. Okay. And so I did a blog post about, you know, it's great that we're coming out with this law, but here are a couple of concerns that I have. And I had a positive spin to it, right? Crickets. Nobody commented on the blog post, didn't hear anything about it. Fast forward a year later, I got a call from USA Today. And make a long story short, it had to do with some celebrities in Los Angeles sharing naked pictures of each other on Instagram. And it was a sextortion type of case. And you'd recognize the name if I shared it with you. When the reporter asked me if I knew anything about the story, I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't watch that television station. Tell me more. She goes, well, I found you from a blog post that you wrote a year ago.
Right.
I think you're probably the expert I want to talk to on California sextortion law. Do you have a moment? Long story short, later on that day, almost a full page story in USA Today. So it's by jumping on breaking stories, keeping it interesting, keep it positive, add your unique twist, be quick. And if you guys want to learn how to newsjack, go to David Merriman Scott's website. He's got a book and some courses. Do it the right way, because if you newsjack the wrong way, it's a two-edged sword. You could cut your big toe off, right? So there's some topics that I would absolutely avoid. But I think breaking news stories that are interesting, a lawyer's perspective is just invaluable. And it's a great way to build your brand out on social media.
Absolutely. There's two things I want to make a point of. The first one is with the first article that you wrote something about from the beach, you brought a huge emotional component to that. You made it extremely personal. Like, this is something that you personally fear for your daughter. And then you did the video. And so you started you made something emotional about it. The second point.
Well, it's from the heart too.
From the heart. Yeah.
From the heart.
Very personal. And it's what a lot of, not just parents, but people fear happening to themselves. The second thing about the shelf life, if you will, of the blog article, this is something that people don't realize. HubSpot, I'm not promoting them, although I do love their product. We don't use them. They have gotten to where they are. They are a CRM. They are for marketing. They're a marketing tool. They have all this free content on how to blog, how to use social media. They have a whole university that people can do courses for free. But one of the ways that they have gained a foothold in their sector is that they've been blogging for about 12 years now, and people still go to articles that they published when they originally were founded. And the shelf life of some of this stuff, if it's good and if it's worthwhile, will be found. And so, yes, a lot of stuff is ephemeral, especially in Twitter, unless you're being inflammatory or super provocative. But if you are bringing content that is valuable to market or to customers or to your clients, and that also has an emotional hook to it, the shelf life, it can go on and on and on and on. So to your point, you just made that example.
So HubSpot's a great company. David Merriman Scott's good friends with one of the founders, Brian Halloran, who I've met, and that's a whole nother story, but absolutely great people to follow and see how they're using social. Here's a less emotional way to newsjack, to take advantage of just relevant news, right? Everyone's interested in what's going on right now. Right. And if you can talk about this stuff and create content, I think that places you about well above what most lawyers are doing. When Manafort was indicted, okay, I don't know if you guys remember this, but it was a big deal. Yeah. And so I did a post on, it wasn't a political post, but it was what to do when you've been indicted. And I don't even practice criminal law. Yes. But I did a post because I thought, okay, this is what people are interested in. I did the same thing with whistleblowers a couple of weeks ago. Okay, when that all went down, I did a post, basically the history of whistleblowing, and I shared it on LinkedIn. didn't point fingers, but it's like, there's an interesting history here that I knew people would be searching for. And I was right. Well, on the Manafort case at it was something like one of the largest National Speaker Association events, where I think my dear friend Bob Berg was being honored as Speaker of the Year, if I'm not mistaken. It was a Sunday morning. I'm sitting home watching football, and my phone lights up, and it's Bob Berg in the audience messaging me, "Hey, Mitch, here's a picture. Look what David Merriman Scott's talking about on the screen." So in front of thousands of people, he's got my Paul Manafort newsjacking posts with Manafort's picture up there, talking about our law firm in front of 2,000 potential, referral sources.
Right.
And so even where I was creating that just to add value to my immediate community, what we're talking about is something where you can get other people to toot your horn for you, which is even better than tooting your own horn.
Right.
And if you can add value at the same time, then it's super powerful. I would say that some lawyers who I come across, they're hesitant about being on video. They're worried about how they look, how they sound. I don't like the way I look and sound, but I understand the power of video, and I've just gotten used to it. It just doesn't matter to me.
Right.
But if you're hesitant about jumping on social because you don't want your picture shown or your video shared, first of all, try to get over that if you can. Figure out if it's a self-limitation or if it's something you can work on. But number two, write a blog post, okay? Share interesting photographs and stories on Instagram. There are ways to dip your toe into the social media sand in a way that you'll be comfortable with doing it. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get. And then you can start incorporating all of these other tools, approaches, and techniques into, your storytelling approach. You can be unique by doing it your own way. And then obviously the last element to communication in courtroom and on social media is all about being memorable, doing things different than everyone else in town, right?
Viral. Like nobody hardly uses that word anymore. Viral is passing.
Well, being viral, you might be viral for the wrong reasons. And here's the thing, you want to take a step back. And if you're creating good, appropriately emotional content in your own unique way that's memorable, remarkable, and gets other people to take notice of who you are, that's the winning formula on social media. It's those three steps. And what most lawyers do is they look to see what every other lawyer in town's doing.
Right.
What's every other lawyer across the United States doing? If you're doing what every other lawyer is doing on social media, you're doing it wrong. First of all, 99% of the attorneys are doing social media completely wrong.
If they're doing it at all, yeah.
If they're doing it at all, they're treating social, they're pushing out these late night television ads that just make you cringe, except they call it social media. And what I'd rather see all of my friends do, because lawyers are my best friend. I love lawyers. I married a lawyer, is I want you guys show your human side, show your involvement with Rotary or the church or what you're doing in the community. Talk about your hobbies, your interests, your passions. Mm-hmm. What do you enjoy doing? I like to paddleboard. I grew up riding and racing motocross. I loved to hang glide back in the day. Share your interests, because when you do this, guess what? People will start connecting with you. Right. They'll start gravitating towards you as a friend, as a trusted referral source. And then that's where the magic happens. There is a 5-step process when I create social media content. I'd love to share with the audience.
Yes.
Super fast.
Before we get there, I just want to say something that a lot of people might be thinking.
Sure.
I've experienced in the past. One, there's no barrier to entry with social media. Anyone can create an account. You're not going to get banned. You don't have to pay. It's completely free. So the biggest hurdle, I think, is exactly what you're going to talk about right now, Mitch, is how do you get started?
So pick the platform, for example, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. I would be on all 4 of those platforms at a minimum, depending on what you're comfortable with doing. But whatever content you're creating, whether it's written, podcasting, which I love, video and live video, love video and live video. It's awesome. All you need. I'm not very good at it. You just get used to seeing me all the time.
Because you do it. That's what
I do it. Oh my God. You should see the first couple of videos. They're cringeworthy. But having said that, there's a process that I use, and I even use this in court. I use this in mediations and arbitrations. It's a 5-step process to persuasion. The first step is you want to state the problem. So if you're doing a live video, you're writing a blog post, let's just say the problem has to do with there just aren't enough lollipops in the world. I mean, let's face it, you guys, there aren't enough lollipops in the world. So you state the problem. And when you state the problem, the second step is to agitate the problem. Why is that a problem? Well, the reason that's a problem is that if everybody doesn't have enough lollipops, people are going to be miserable. They're not going to be walking around happy. They're going to be mad at each other because we all have sweet tooths and we all need more lollipops. When you're doing steps 1 and 2, incorporate the power of storytelling. Incorporate your feelings and your emotions, right? People will remember how you made them feel as opposed to how you, as to what you said. Incorporate pictures in steps 1 and 2 and videos in steps 1 and 2, because statistics and studies have shown, especially for the trial lawyers out there, it's one thing to stand in front of a jury during your opening statement and tell them what's going to happen. It's another thing to tap and transport them back into a real-time emotional story that's going to incorporate the facts and the evidence that they're going to be seeing and watching and hearing and maybe even smelling during the course of the trial. While you have pictures and photographs coming up behind you, they're going to remember that 10x as to what you said. The same thing applies to social media. So the first step is state the problem. Number 2, agitate the problem. Number 3, offer a clear and concise solution to the problem. Keep it short, keep it simple, but once again, make it unique, make it memorable. Okay, in this case, what I've decided to do is open up my own lollipop company. I'm going to make lollipops down at Strands Beach where you guys see me running each day, where you see me flying the drone, when you see me trying to stay in shape. That's where I'm going to make lollipops, and I'm going to use seawater to do this, and it's going to be an environmentally friendly company, and everybody's going to be happy. So step 3 is the solution. Step 4 is how does your solution help your immediate audience, whether it's my jury of 12, or my live video audience on LinkedIn, or my blog post audience on my WordPress site, which is streaming.lawyer. How does your solution help your audience? Well, for those of you that are around me, I'm always bugging you for lollipops. So if you can get your own lollipops from my company down at Strands Beach, I won't bug you anymore. That's how it's going to help you. The 5th step is a call to action. Here's where a lot of lawyers blow it on social media. Don't have your traditional call to action on social media. Don't say, listen, if you guys want lollipops, dial my 1-800 number, go to my website. What I prefer to see on social media, and I'm just telling you guys that this is what works, is, listen, you guys, if you want to share a lollipop with me down at the beach, you know where I am. I'm on all the platforms. Right now I'm over on Facebook. Just join me on Facebook, and I can't wait for you to taste out my strawberry, vanilla, or chocolate lollipop. We're going to have fun. So problem, agitate the problem. Step 3 is state a solution. Step 4 is show how that solution applies to your immediate audience. Step 5 is a call to action. And by the way, for the trial lawyers in there, that step 5 is filling out that jury verdict form that's blown up, where I'm actually walking the jury. This is exactly what I want you to do. That is a call to action, but that's my step 5 in court. You can do the same thing on social media.
Is that how you write your closing arguments?
Absolutely. Everything I just said applies to almost everything I do in life, whether it's a mediation or negotiating with my family, what movie we're going to see on a Friday night. Seriously. And I'm just telling you.
You always win?
Of course not. It depends on who I'm talking to. Not in this family. But you know what? You know what's interesting is when you add value and you're speaking from the heart and you're creating memorable content, which, by the way, for lawyers, you guys, watch TED Talks. Read TED Talks. Learn how TED Talks work. Read the book by Carmine Gallo, who contributed a chapter in my book. He wrote the book Talk Like TED. He interviewed 200 different TED speakers and figured out what are these top 200 speakers doing the same way. What's similar about their presentations, right? And he was kind enough to write a chapter in my book as to how to use these TED Talk approaches on social media. In my book, you guys, I reached out to 46 other professionals and experts from around the world and had them contribute guest chapters as a favor. So the book's broken down into 3 sections. The first section is having the right mindset for social media, which is what we've been talking about. It's a giving, go-giver type of mindset. Number 2, understanding the platform personalities. And then number 3, I have 19 chapters on communication tips, which work on social media, but guess what? They also work in a courtroom or in a mediation. But what I was going to get at, there you go. There's the book right there. 47 top experts, right? I was smart enough to know, you guys, that I was not the brightest bulb in the lamp to the point where I had the ability to write this book on my own. So I reached out to experts. But what I was going to say is everything we're talking about, keep things short and sweet, okay? Time and attention are our greatest assets in today's world. Yes. 100 years ago, the average attention span was around 20 to 30 minutes. Yes. Today, experts are claiming, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but a lot of experts are claiming it's about 9 seconds, the same attention span as a goldfish. Now, I have young kids, and I happen to know their attention spans pretty strong when it's something they're interested in. I think we're being just inundated with content. And so to expect us to dive into something unless we're interested in that topic, it's not a reasonable expectation. But what you want to do is follow TED Talks and keep your opening statements, keep your presentations, keep your social media content short and sweet, 18, 20 minutes or less. That works really, really well on social media. You also want to use the rule of 3s. Okay, there's a reason why I'm talking about emotion, keep things novel, and keep things memorable. It's the rule of 3s. When you're writing, when you're speaking, when you're talking, use the rule of 3s. Break everything down into 3 things. Keep it down to about 18 minutes, and you'll be maximizing your opportunity to have people watch your content, understand what you're saying. And then on social media, you know what the biggest mistake is that professionals make, lawyers? There's one constant mistake that all of us make. We don't engage enough. We put content out there and then we forget about it. Yeah. And for me, the value with social media is, number 1, you can pretty much do everything with this wherever you are. So if you're sitting in court and you're number 50 on the calendar and you're just going to be sitting there for an hour and a half, I like to engage. I like to respond to comments. I like to answer questions. I go in and follow up on my social media posts and engage and ask open-ended questions. I get the community to start talking. What do you guys think? Or did anybody see this happen last night? And it's the engagement aspect of social media. Just like any relationship, I think, is where you mine the gold and build the brand and make the magic happen. So make sure you guys engage.
So couple things. A question just came up. It's what's the title of the book? The book is called The Ultimate Guide to Social Media.
Thank you for sharing that. And then the foreword was by David Merriman Scott.
Yeah. I do want to touch on something that we haven't talked about. We've talked about creating content. We've talked about how to create it. We've talked about all the channels. But one of the things, let's go back to networking on social media and engagement.
Sure.
So obviously, one of the great things about social media are other people, not just as a consumer of what you're doing, but as you as the consumer. Who do you look to follow? Who do you follow, and how do you engage with those people? And so if someone's starting new, or someone doesn't have a lot of people that they know about, who would you recommend that they follow who's done this successfully, or who's just interesting and who you go to every day and are like, yeah, I like what they have to say?
So when it comes to creating video, I'm a big fan of Casey Neistat, who's a YouTuber.
Oh, yeah, I know he is.
And Casey's also just a gifted filmmaker. And I love the technique that Casey uses to create his videos. And I think if more lawyers, and I'm trying to use this technique, but I'm trying to do it in my own way, right? I don't want to be like somebody else. I want to be Mitch. Yeah. And you'll see some of my beach runs and beach workouts where I'm incorporating, for example, the concept of venue. Having a venue clause in your contracts. It's just like me intentionally picking this stretch of beach to work out on. Mm-hmm. And I tried to use some of Casey's techniques in that video. You're not going to see other lawyer videos like that. It's not that great, but I'm learning. Right. But for videos, people like Casey are good. They'll plant seeds to help you create unique content. I would suggest in my Legal Minds Mastermind, we have lawyers that, and do you mind if it's legalminds.lawyer? And we have lawyers that are just killing it on social media. They've come in with very little knowledge and they're doing everything that we just talked about, which is what's exciting, right? Mm-hmm. It's one thing to tell somebody to do something or suggest something. It's another thing. And the biggest challenge I see are professionals and lawyers not taking action. They understand the power of everything we've just talked about,
Right.
but they don't implement it. They don't take action for whatever reason. So I would suggest that if you're in Legal Minds and it's a global community, look at what the other Legal Mind members are doing, because they're doing social media the right way.
Okay.
And yeah, it's exciting. I mean, one of the things I love to do is speak at social media conferences. It has nothing to do with the law. I'll talk about starting a company or some of the things that startups need to keep in mind, but I'm in front of 400 millennial entrepreneurs, and it's exciting. And I love watching these people that have started multi-million-dollar companies with a couple of Twitter DMs or text messages. When I start talking about limited liability companies in the corporate veil, insurance, tax issues, you can see their eyes light up because they realize they haven't thought about any of that stuff. Okay. Right. In other words, they're the creators creating these new companies. But I think for all the lawyers watching this, another reason to be on social is you're adding an unbelievable amount of value to a digital community that doesn't even realize that they need your help.
Right.
And I think the more we help the consumer, the better we'll come across as lawyers.
Yes.
And the more they're going to know, like, and trust us. And I think that's good for all of us in the legal profession. So I think, you know, I was asked by Jay Bear a couple of weeks ago, why am I so active on social at this point in time? I'm at the point in my life where I want to show the consumer that the lawyers are amazing. It's an amazing profession. And I want more young individuals to come into the profession, number one. So by sharing these stories in a fun, unique, interesting way, like we've talked about, I'm hoping to kind of build the brand of being a lawyer and raising the bar for the next generation. So that's my why. Those are my reasons.
No, you're touching on a very good point. It's that you're giving away something. You're giving away your expertise. You're giving away your knowledge. You're giving away something, not just as a means to get new clients, but really to educate a population that probably needs the education. So to your point, if you're starting a new company, you don't know the ways and means of half the things that you need to know about. But if you are in a conversation, or if you're in a dialogue, or you have some sort of channel with those people that they can at least find your information, or you can even proactively push it out and say, listen, I'm not trying to solicit you, but here's this article. You might want to read it, or you might want to subscribe to this. It'll be very helpful in your venture. You're providing a service that will later on pay back, I'm sure, in tenfold. We did have a question that came up, and so I want you to answer it. I know an answer to this, but I want your answer.
Okay.
Do you suggest that you put your videos through your personal social media page or through your firm's page?
So I would do both, depending on the content. Okay. I think people will connect with you as a human being. Very few consumers are out there, unless they're searching for a particular legal solution, spending time at your law firm blog, your law firm website, your law firm Facebook page. They're not as interested in that as you are, right? They don't care where you went to school, what awards you have. They're interested in finding solutions to their problems, and they're interested in being entertained and engaged with and to building relationships. So what I try to do is 80% of the content on my personal Facebook page is personal content. It's not legal related, but I'll cross-pollinate. Every 20% of the time I'll put a law firm verdict or a law firm interview or something that's happening over in my personal page, and then vice versa. So I would like people to blend their brands, their personal brands and their professional brands on the different platforms when you can. And of course, you're going to have to probably educate everyone else in your firm as to why you want to do this. But once you figure it out, it's just unbelievable.
So we're about at the quarter of the hour, and we want to open it up to more questions. That question came in as we were talking. And Mitch, if there's anything else you want to touch on, we covered everything I think that we had discussed.
We've touched upon, a lot of these different issues. I just really want to encourage just having, for example, over the last, in 96, we had our website go up. I've been on social media, you guys, since social media rolled out, which was, just the next level, unbelievable way of creating global relationships, which have connected me with people like Chrissy Lightfoot out of London, people from all over the world through social media. David Merriman Scott, the gentleman that wrote the foreword to my book, we met on Twitter. He had met my daughter in LA when she was up helping somebody shoot some videos. And when she came back, she goes, Dad, I met the three interesting people. One was LeVar Burton, the movie actor who did Roots and Star Trek. And the other,
Rainbow for
exactly. And she goes, and then I met Mike Rowe, who does the show Dirty Jobs.
Yeah, that's
you guys remember Mike? She goes, but I met somebody, Dad, who I had lunch with, and he blew me away. I mean, he was the most interesting person I met that day. I said, who is that? And he goes, and she said, David Merriman Scott. I said, you're kidding me. I read his books. I know who he is. So I reached out to David on Twitter. This is 8-9 years ago. And we became good friends. And, we've had dinner and our wives know each other. And he's really gone out of his way to support what I'm doing. And I do the same with him. But what I'm getting at is sometimes the relationships start online and you can take them offline. Sometimes the relationships start offline and you can go online and shine a light on other people. It's great to network. It's great to refer out. It's great to help as many people as you can. If you help, and then help some more, and then and only then do you ask. That's how it works on social media. And frankly, it's always kind of worked that way in the real world too. So for those of you that are good at networking, who are good at sharing and helping, you're going to love what social media brings to the table because it allows you to do all of this in your spare time when you have a break. Or if you're like me, I actually schedule a couple of hours a day to build out my social media brand. I just know how beneficial this has been to everything we've talked about. So this is part of my daily activity, and it makes practicing law fun again, to be honest with you.
Right.
It really does.
So a logistical question, in your experience, one of the things as a marketing consultant or working internally in marketing, I've always had to set an expectation with stakeholders about how long it would take to get what I call lift from your social media, meaning like, when are you going to see some return on what you're doing? And I'm not talking about number of followers, but how long do you think it took you to actually start building a dynamic community where you felt you were seeing an impact?
So the ROI of social media is very hard to measure. I will tell you, in 1996, when we put our website up, 8 months later, we had $1 million case come to our law firm just from that internet website. So for me, I'm like, there's something to this whole website internet thing, right? Fast forward to social media, and it's just like anything else. It takes a while to build relationships. And it's probably impossible to measure the ROI of social media. I can give you a couple of specific examples that keep me interested in what we're doing. The case that I was named by the Orange County Trial Lawyers Association as Trial Lawyer of the Year in 2009, that case came to us through a blog post / I think it was a Facebook post, if I'm not mistaken, but I might be, of a family who originally reached out to Johnny Cochran's law firm to hire his firm for something, a wrongful death case. They ended up rejecting the case. The family found us through our online activity, came to our office, and we were able to try the case. It took us 5 years to get that case to trial, but we tried the case with a very nice verdict. And because of that social media interaction that resulted in a case, that's how I got that award. Same thing with something that happened in 2013. So the ROI is difficult to measure, but I think it's substantially more than traditional ROI marketing, and that's why I'm all in. I mean, what's the value of the relationship of our significant other, or our pet dog, or our front office receptionist, or spending that extra hour on your opening statement or closing argument? What's the ROI of that? Just because you can't measure that doesn't mean it doesn't have immense value.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's a whole new mindset to doing business.
Can you recommend some tools? So a lot of the market that we are focusing on at CEB is the solo and the small firms, like 2 or 3 attorney market. And those guys, they're hustling. They are just doing everything for themselves from soup to nuts. What are some tools that maybe they can invest in to help them with their social media presence? Aside from they do have to do it a lot themselves in order to create an authentic presentation, but what else can they invest in?
So what I would do is invest in, and it's a nominal investment, but invest in a platform like Agora Pulse.
Agora Pulse. How do you spell it?
AGORA PULSE, Agora Pulse. And in fact, They have a huge, it just rolled out this morning, social platform with free, like Netflix type of binging content, where you can go in for free and watch all of this free content for the next month. And the co-founder of Agora Pulse is someone who I originally met online, but this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When the family was in Paris, guess where their office is out of? They're out of Paris.
Okay.
So when the family went back to the hotel room for the afternoon, I took a cab across the street and met Emmerich and got to know everybody at Agora Pulse.
Nice.
And I'm now a brand ambassador for the company. But it's a platform that allows you, just like Hootsuite and Buffer, other options, to schedule your content, your social media content. The reason I like Agora Pulse is that it has my inbox in one place. So if somebody private messages me on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, I don't have to go to those platforms to see who's messaging me or to respond. I click Agora Pulse, it's one screen, and all of my inbox is right there, for example.
That's really nice.
So it's a super powerful platform that allows you to engage from one place and schedule content. Nimble is another awesome platform that's similar. It's a CRM that allows me to type in your name, and I use this when I'm picking a jury, but it allows me to type in your name and it will pull in your social media feeds. So I can so your public feeds. So I can see what's of interest to you. What have you been posting about this past week?
That's a good HR tool.
So normally when I, like before I'll make an important phone call to opposing counsel, or I'm doing something with a company, I'll nimble them, N-I-M-B-L-E. I'll nimble them and see what's going on in their life. And I will strategically incorporate into my conversation something like, if his daughter is a soccer player and my son was a soccer player in high school, I need to cut this short. I'm running over to a soccer game at Danny Hills High School. Oh, really? Does your son play soccer? And you start the dialogue like that. It's strategic relationship building. So those are two things that I would do. The other thing I would do, and I wish I could just give it away. It's an inexpensive book. But if you do what's in my book, I'm just telling you guys, look, it's 47 top experts. It's not me. Just do what they tell you to do, and you'll be positioning yourself for success on social media. That's where I would start. And anything you can do to improve your communication skills. This isn't something that we're born with.
Right.
Okay. And so work every day at becoming a better communicator. And when I say better communicator, you don't have to be the most articulate person in the room. What you need to do is look into the webcam instead of me looking down here while I'm talking. Or if I'm shooting a video, know which end of the phone your camera is located, so that when you're looking and doing a video, it looks like you're looking right into the lens. Use your hands, be animated, be yourself. Shine a light on as many other people as you can. And when it's all said and done, I think you'll be happy with the results and your experiences that you have on social media.
Definitely. I don't think we have any more questions at this time. Do you have any? You've given us so much good advice. You've been incredibly giving and gracious coming on.
Thank you. I enjoy this stuff. I enjoy this stuff.
Yeah, it's fun. And you and I can talk for hours about stuff like this, about what works. And it really does work. I know that there's definitely been an attitude change. A lot of people probably initially when social media came out were very hesitant. It does work. It's a phenomenal networking tool. It's a phenomenal way to reach audiences that you otherwise would not be able to afford to reach. And it's just a way of keeping in the know of what's going on. And I know for a lot of souls, it's probably very lonely doing business by yourself. And this is a way to create it's not a virtual community. It's a real community. These are real people that you can connect with day in and day out. So I encourage you. If Mitch, would you mind sharing any contact information in case people want to get in touch with you directly?
Well, I would love to, and thank you for asking. And let me just first also say, everything we're doing right now is practice. In other words, the more you do this, the better you get. And you can take some of your skills and techniques that you use on social media to do a live Zoom, for example, with a potential client on the other side of the country to close a deal. Yeah. So the more we do all this, the better you're going to get, not only on social, but also in your practice when it comes to closing deals or creating content. The key is to start. You just have to start. Keep it fun. Keep it interesting. Don't be too hard on yourself. If you guys want to stay in touch with me, I'm not going to send you to my traditional law firm website, which is a great website. But what I want you to do is go over and jump over to streaming.lawyer, like live streaming. Streaming.lawyer is where I share everything that we've talked about. And I'd love to stay connected with you guys. If you want to know more about my Legal Minds, jump over to legalminds.lawyer. It's a global mastermind. We have some amazing lawyers and other professionals in the group. And the site explains everything that we do. But it's all about just having fun, adding value, showing your human side, sharing your why on social media, and when it's all said and done, making the world a better place.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you, everyone on the phone who attended.